Okay, sorry about that. Had some technical difficulties with my sound there. But I was just talking about how good the Nuggets three-pointers were tonight, and or three-point defense was tonight. They were fantastic, and the big three for the Nuggets were really, really good. This is the three. This is what the front office envisioned when you see the big three. Play like they did tonight. This is what the front office envisioned that they could do. So this was the first time this year that MPJ, Nikola Jokic, and Jamal all went off on the same night. So it's been really, really good to see. And that's exactly what this team needed. So excellent win for the Nuggets tonight. I thought the bench was a big time issue for the Nuggets again. I mean, they get outscored 60-19 in bench points to the Pistons. Um, this is something that, when it comes to the trade deadline, a lot of reports have been saying that the Nuggets are wanting to go out and get a scorer who can come in when Nikola Jokic specifically is not on the floor, create their own shot, and really help out the second unit. Now, I'm in favor of that. I do think the team needs that. But man, I think what this team really needs is more 3-and-D defensive stoppers. I don't know how much a guy like Zach LaVine is going to come in and give this team a boost off the bench, maybe a little bit. But the defense tonight, although I thought they were good in certain areas, especially that second quarter, they gave 23 points. You gave up 121 points to the Detroit Pistons. Now, like I said, they're a young, talented roster. I mean, they should be. They've been so bad over the last 3 or 4 years that this team has had so many high draft picks. Cade Cunningham, number 1 overall. Jalen Duren is a Nuggets killer for whatever reason. Jaden Ivey, another high pick. Ozzer Thompson, another really high draft pick. But the Nuggets were pretty bad defensively tonight throughout the game, especially in that fourth quarter. Now, what helped them was the 47 points in the third quarter, which was a season high in any quarter for this year for the Nuggets, was fantastic. But I really do think that's what this Nuggets team needs more than anything, is just go out and find as many 3-and-D guys as possible. And the bench continues to be a huge issue for the Nuggets. And I don't think that's going to change unless the Nuggets make a change. Now, the problem is the bench has been pretty good defensively, actually, and they've just had no offense. It's kind of been the inverse of the starting unit, which has been fantastic offensively, but not very good defensively. We did talk about last night. The interesting lineup that Coach Malone trotted out there was MPJ, Joker, Russell Westbrook, Jamal, and Christian. So you have 3 guards in the starting lineup in place of Aaron Gordon, insert Russell Westbrook. I didn't think it really worked out super well last night, and I said, hey, give it another shot tomorrow night against Detroit. See if you can find something there. And I thought that unit actually played pretty damn well. In fact, Russ didn't have a great game offensively. He only took 6 shots, did hit 4 of them, 9 rebounds, 8 assists, a couple of steals. He was really good on the defensive end, did have 6 turnovers. That's way too many. And a lot of those came in the fourth quarter. But I'll tell you what, in the third quarter, Russell Westbrook gets into it with Malik Beasley and Isaiah Stewart, which was just awesome. And then that actually led to Isaiah Stewart getting a technical. And then Russ is just pumping up the crowd. It was fantastic to see. That's why you bring Russell Westbrook to the Denver Nuggets, because for stuff like that. And it was a big momentum shift in this game. Really got the crowd into it. And you could tell that it was bothering the Pistons players. Like, they did not like Russell Westbrook getting up in their chili, as Scott Hastings would say. And I thought it bothered him. So it was good to see. Those are the kind of little ancillary type things that Russ does that's just tremendous. So, will this continue? Like, is this the lineup moving forward until Aaron Gordon comes back? I don't know. I mean, it looked much better tonight than it did last night against Cleveland. Now, Cleveland's the best team in the NBA so far this year, at least record-wise. But this is going to be interesting to see if Michael Malone decides to stick with that starting 5 until Aaron Gordon comes back, and then you kind of go from there. But I tell you what, Jamal Murray tonight put on a masterclass, and this is the best game I've seen Jamal Murray play in a year. Plain and simple. I've talked about it at length. He has not looked right at all this year. Really, it started towards the end of last year, and over the summer looked awful for Team Canada in the Olympics. He's been slowly building. He has been over the last couple of weeks, and the two-man game has been slowly building between he and Nikola Jokic. And I talked about this a month or so ago. Where's the two-man game between Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray? It was like non-existent. And this is something that has been the bread and butter for the Nuggets over the course of the last 4 or 5 years. Obviously, after Jamal comes back from his torn ACL, but that's what won them a championship. Mostly was the two-man game between Nikola Jokic and and Jamal Murray. And it wasn't there this year. So that was very concerning to me. But tonight, you could see the two-man game starting to build up, and tonight was really, really good. It really did remind me, and I tweeted this out, it was shades of 2023, the two-man game between Nikola and Jamal. So I'll tell you what, if they can get the two-man game rolling like they did tonight for the rest of the season, this team will be in a really, really good position to compete in the playoffs. So we'll see sort of, how that shakes out. But Michael Porter Jr., again, I've been very critical of him this year, just as far as the consistency. I think, honestly, this is the best year so far that MPJ's had in his career. What I've had an issue with is his inconsistency from game to game, quarter to quarter, half to half, however you want to slice it up. But tonight was the first game this year, at least, where I really saw him be productive throughout the game. So that was excellent to see. I mean, he had a really good first half, and he had a really good second half tonight. So that's the consistency I'm looking for from Michael Porter Jr. And to have Jamal score 34, Nikola score 37, and MPJ score 26, that's what you paid these guys to do. That's what the front office paid these guys to do. I'm not saying they need to go out and do this every single game, but man, between those three, MPJ, Joker, and Jamal, they should be averaging 60-plus points a game, minimum. And they're going to have to if this team really wants to compete. Now, Joker's above 30 for the season, so really you could probably push that threshold closer to 70 a game. I mean, tonight it was, close to 100 nearly. But it was great to see those three finally put a game together where they're all producing and all playing really well. And it just goes to show you how good this team can be if those three guys in particular are contributing. So excellent win tonight for the Nuggets. 134-121 is your final. The city needed this win tonight. We had a heartbreaking loss in overtime in Cincinnati. The Broncos lose. Should have gone for 2. Sean Payton at the end of the fourth quarter, but we'll talk about that more tomorrow and coming up on Monday on PhD. How do you not go for 2 there on the road against Joe Burrow in that offense? You're going to give him another chance? Man, that just irked me today. I was watching a little bit of the Buffs game too. They got crushed by BYU. And Travis Hunter and Shedeur played the majority of the game. I actually didn't see Travis in the fourth quarter. I might have missed it because I had most of my attention on the Nuggets game, obviously. But Shedeur stayed in there pretty much the whole game. So that was a very interesting decision. We'll see if down the road in the future if Dion does that with his star players. So that was really cool to see. But my point is both teams lost. So it was great to see the Nuggets pick up the city tonight and get a massive victory over the Pistons and improve to 17-13 on the year. So as far as the standings in the Western Conference go, the Nuggets do slide back into the 6th seed. They are tied record-wise with the Lakers, but they have the tiebreaker over the Lakers. They're just a half game behind the Clippers for the 5 seed. And like we talked about last night, the Mavs are in the 4 seed at 20-11, but Luka's going to be out for at least a month. So this next month is a really good opportunity for the Nuggets to really move up the standings in the Western Conference. You do have a couple of surprise teams in the 2 and 3 seeds in the West. Memphis is 22-10 on the year. I mean, who saw that coming? And Houston, the Houston Rockets, 21-10. They're the 3 seed in the West. Now, I like what Houston's doing. I think Alperen Şengün is a fantastic player. He's probably the closest thing to Jokic currently in the NBA. Obviously, he's not anywhere close to Nikola Jokic's level, but as far as that style of play, I think he's probably closest to Joker. You could throw Domantas Sabonis in there from the Kings as well, but the Rockets are rolling right now. The Grizzlies are rolling. But my point with that is I've got to think that the Grizzlies and Rockets are going to come back down to earth just a little bit. So I do think the Nuggets have a really, really good shot here over the next month or so to really work their way up the standings in the Western Conference. And who knows where they could end up. Now, the Thunder are going to be very difficult to catch. They're 25-5 on the year. They've won 10 games in a row. They are right there with the Cavs as far as being one of the best teams in basketball. Now, the Cavs are 27-4. The Thunder are 25-5, but both of those teams are really, really good. Chet Holmgren's been out for a while, and the Thunder are still rolling. So that's a really, really good basketball team. But again, the Nuggets, I think, have a really, really good shot at climbing up the Western Conference standings over the next month or so, specifically with Luka being out for the Mavericks. I think that's a really good opportunity for not only the Nuggets, but a lot of these teams in the West. I mean, Minnesota's in the 8th seed right now. Pretty surprising. The Lakers, honestly, for as much dysfunction has been going on in that organization this year, the fact that they're 17-13 is pretty wild. In fact, if you look, I went over the numbers last night with when Jamal Murray plays versus when Russell Westbrook plays or starts for the Nuggets, how much better the team has been with Russ in the starting lineup. Kind of the same thing going on with the Lakers right now. LeBron, when he's on the floor, the Lakers are not very good. So that's the really weird dynamic going on in the Western Conference. But again, the Nuggets have a really, really good opportunity to move on up in the standings. Let's see here. My guy Daniel, I fear a Malone firing. I do not fear a Malone firing. Tell me why Malone should be fired. Please give me specifics. That's all I ask for. If you have legit reasons, I'm happy to have the conversation. But I've been on record all season saying that the struggles the Nuggets have gone through are not on Michael Malone. It's a roster construction problem that the Nuggets are having right now. And honestly, it's a Jamal Murray problem. It's a Michael Porter Jr. problem. And it's a bench problem. I don't know how much another head coach is going to help out those issues. If I see issues with Malone, I will call them out. But I don't think this is a Michael Malone issue this year. I just don't. It's the guys they paid have to play better, plain and simple. That's kind of how I view that. So Beerman asks, is Jamal Murray back? Beerman, I tweeted out during the game, this is the best game I've seen Jamal Murray play in a year. And I've been talking about on the post-game show over the last 2 or 3 weeks how Jamal Murray, not necessarily numbers-wise, although his numbers are ascending for sure, there's no doubt about it, but just the way he was looking, moving around the court. I mean, if you go back and watch some games in the beginning of the season, Jamal Murray wasn't blowing by anybody. He couldn't move. But we're starting to see Jamal be the old Jamal, which is great to see. And it's wild to me because I've said this a bunch. Jamal's 27 years old. These next 5 years should be the prime years of Jamal Murray's career, production-wise. Now, obviously, we've learned that, he's been dealing with nagging injuries, and I think that was pretty obvious. I was pointing that out at the beginning of the year. Like, it wasn't in an injury report or anything like that, but I'm like, Jamal has to be injured. Like, he literally looks like a shell of himself. Well, I think he's starting to get healthy because he's starting to look like the Jamal Murray we're accustomed to seeing. So, yeah, I mean, hey, I want to see it for the next couple of weeks before I'm ready to say that I think Jamal Murray is officially back. But I'll tell you what, the last couple of weeks has been very encouraging as far as Jamal Murray's play and the hope that it gives this team moving forward, because they're going to need Jamal Murray to be a very, very good player for them, a very productive player in order for them to really make some noise this year in the playoffs. And I'll throw Michael Porter Jr. in there as well. I think because Here's why I don't throw Nikola Jokic in there, or Aaron Gordon for that matter. You know what you're going to get from them. You're going to get the best player in the world play night in and night out from Nikola Jokic. We all understand that. Aaron Gordon is about as consistent as it comes on both ends of the floor. Now, he's been dealing with injuries this year, so we'll have to keep an eye on that. But as far as just on the floor play goes, those two are as consistent as it gets. So what's the next step for this team? Well, it's Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr. being productive players for this basketball team, plain and simple. And they cannot win a title without those two guys being productive, really productive offensive players for this basketball team. And I thought Jamal played really good defense tonight too. He had a couple of big blocks in transition defense tonight that led to easy opportunities on the other end for the Nuggets, which was great to see. So, the whole Fire Malone thing, I don't get it. Like, give me an example of why they should fire him, and tell me who they would bring in that would do a better job. Like, that's all I'm asking for. I'm not even saying you're wrong. You're free to have your opinions, but you got to give me a reason as to why. And if you want to do that, who are they going to bring in? And I always go back to the Milwaukee Bucks situation. They win a title, fire their head coach, they bring in Doc Rivers, and the Bucks have been just sort of so-so since they fired their head coach they won a title with. So the grass isn't always greener, I guess, is kind of my point on that. All right, let's see here. Chris B. talking about the Broncos. Sean Payton sucks with the run game. The last possession he could have called 3 dives. The first play was great. Yeah. I'm not going to get into the Broncos because I'm going to lose my shit. If I'm being honest, if I get into the Broncos, not going for 2 on the road against that team and that quarterback, inexcusable. And by the way, after the game, Sean Payton said they made the right decision. Okay. And you had Bo Nix going like, let's go for 2. But I'm not going to get into it because it's going to drive me up a wall. But yeah, that was just so frustrating. So it was good to see the Nuggets get a win tonight because they absolutely needed it. Let's see here. Beerman, what more can Joker do? 30.5 points, 12.7. Oh yeah, no, like I said, Nikola Jokic is doing everything he can. In fact, Joker was talking about before the game, or it was last night after the game, how guys on the team need to stop putting blame, or it wasn't like that. It was more of just like guys need to look inward. They need to look in the mirror before giving reasons as to why the team's struggling, which I thought was really interesting. That was a really good leadership moment from Nikola Jokic. And he's had a couple of those moments this year. Nikola Jokic is never going to be like a Russell Westbrook type of guy in the locker room where he's going to yell and scream and do all that stuff. He's really just he's really good at picking his spots and being selective. I think Joe Sakic, the old Avs captain, was really good in that way too. The leadership qualities and just sort of the personalities between a guy like Joe Sakic and Nikola Jokic really, at least to me, seem pretty similar. But it was good to hear that from Nikola Jokic, and I completely agree with him. I don't know specifically who he was talking about, but it obviously needed to be said because otherwise Nikola Jokic wouldn't have said it. That's not his style. So it was good to hear that from the Joker before the game. But what a really great bounce back win tonight for the Nuggets. Again, they're like 5 or 6-0 on the second night of a back-to-back, which for whatever reason is like, it's unfathomable really if you think about it, but they've been excellent on the second night of back-to-backs, and they've been horrendous when they've had 2 or more days off. So I don't know what that's all about. Maybe there's just sort of a mental thing that are just not really. It was almost good that this was a back-to-back after last night's game against the Cavs. Didn't really give the guys a lot of time to like think about that loss and kind of sit there and stew in it. They just had to go back out and play another basketball game. In that third quarter, my goodness, 47 points. Again, a season high for any quarter this year for the Nuggets tonight, 47. They were fantastic offensively. And, if this team can have Joker, Jamal, and MPJ play even close to like they did tonight, they're going to be sitting in a good spot. But the issues still, for me, remain the same. The bench is awful. Okay. They need to do something with the bench. And I get like tonight and last night, Russell Westbrook was inserted into the starting lineup. So you take him out of the bench rotation. That hurts a little bit. But the Nuggets, as far as bench production goes, are one of the lowest scoring benches in the entire NBA. So, and I get it. A lot of people, and I've said this too, well, it doesn't really matter come playoff time because, your rotations shrink. The Nuggets won a title with an 8-man rotation, and I get it. But the point is, you still need those guys. You need them in the regular season, specifically to help the starters in the playoffs. Look at tonight. It's a great example. The Nuggets have a massive lead going into the fourth quarter. In fact, it was 114-89. The Nuggets led this game going into the fourth quarter. This is what I mean when I say the bench needs to help the starters come playoff time. Don't give up the lead to where Nikola, Jamal, and MPJ and the starters have to come back in the fourth quarter. That's what doomed this team last year. They had too many close games, too many times where they blew the lead in the fourth quarter, had to bring the starters back in, and the guys were exhausted come playoff time. I mean, you saw it. It was obvious. Malone talked about it. I was at the postseason press conference with Malone, Calvin Booth, and Josh Kroenke. Malone said, I probably ran these guys into the ground. Well, how do you not run these guys into the ground this year? The bench has to be better. I'm not asking them to go out there and extend the lead by 10 points every time Nikola Jokic is off the floor. Just keep it even. If they can do that, that's going to significantly help this team save miles on the starters' bodies for the playoffs. And that's really kind of what my key is for the bench. So again, I don't think it's absolutely necessary for this team to go out and get a Zach LaVine type player who can create his own shot, create his own offense. They could use it, no doubt, but I think there's much bigger areas of need for the Nuggets, particularly bench scoring and particularly defense. And that's really kind of what it comes down to for me. So, my guy Dante, could the Nuggets have acquired Dennis Schroeder, as I'm assuming you were talking about? I mean, yeah, absolutely. That's it. That's a guy they could have acquired, but I think it's too late for that. But they need their new version of Bruce Brown and KCP. Now, they're not going to get guys to that level, I don't think, but there are guys out there that can be better defenders and hit a 3-pointer at 40% clip. I do think that's a possibility. So we'll see what they do. I'd be shocked if they don't make any moves at the trade deadline. I think they will. I think they might make multiple moves, and it depends on really what happens over the next month. But again, as good as it was to see Nikola, Jamal, and MPJ play as well as they did tonight, all on the same night, I have my reservations of how consistently and how often they are going to be able to do that, and how often and consistently they're going to be able to put performances like tonight together in the playoffs. They need more help. And again, if you missed it, the Nuggets bench got outscored 60-19 tonight. I mean, the Nuggets won by 13. So the starters crushed the Pistons starters, but the bench almost let the Pistons back into this game. And then again, you got to bring back Joker and the starters and put more miles and more minutes on those bodies that could be used to save up before the playoffs. So priority number one for me right now is defense, and number two is bench depth, plain and simple. So we'll see what they decide to do. But hey, great win for the Nuggets tonight. They get the 134-121 over the victory over the Detroit Pistons and improve to 17-13 on the year. We'll be back at this thing coming up on Monday. The Nuggets will travel to Salt Lake City for the last time this season and take on the Jazz. You can hear that game on Altitude Sports Radio 92.5 pregame with Berto and Kaz coming up at 6:30 and tip off just a bit after 7 o'clock on Monday. And then you can catch me on the postgame show around 9:30, 9:45. And then you've got a home game against the Atlanta Hawks on New Year's Day, January 1st, and then a home game against Wemby and the Spurs. I always look forward to the Spurs matchups now between Nikola Jokic and Victor Wembanyama. It is just fascinating to see those two go at it. The two best bigs in the NBA, bar none right now. And I know Wemby's only in his second year, but Victor Wembanyama will be challenging very soon for being the best player on the planet. Now, Joker might hold that title for several more years, but man, Victor Wembanyama is an absolute freak. That guy is unbelievable. But it's really cool to see him and Nikola Jokic go at it. And then they play him back-to-back nights here in Denver, and then the next night in San Antonio for the next 4 games against the Nuggets. And then you have a huge home matchup against the Boston Celtics coming up on January 7th. So 4 really winnable games coming up for the Nuggets as the season just kind of rolls along and we get into the dog days of the NBA season in January and early February. But great win for the Nuggets tonight. 134-121 is the final. And we will talk to you coming up on Monday night. Thank you so much for listening to In the Paint right here on Altitude Sports Radio.